See the off. Oh, hello everyone. I'm I'm Joanna Penn, and I'm here with Orna Ross. Hi, Orna.
Hi, Joanna. We caught her there on the hop.
You did. And we're here for the Alliance of Independent Authors, a monthly hangout chat and Q&A. And we have a stack of questions today because we haven't had one of these since October, actually. So we had a bit of a break, but we're back and ready to answer your questions. So we're going to have a very quick update on what we're working on, and then we'll get right into the questions. So Orna, give us a quick ALLi and Orna update.
ALLi new website over Christmas, well, just before Christmas and since. So lots of new and interesting things there. And main thing I'd like to do is encourage members to please go there, update your profile, and check out the page called Maximizing Your Membership, because we're just really aware that members are not all members are availing of all the wonderful things that are there that are very useful to them, and the website is just getting more and more stuff each week. We've got more and more coming on. And the second big thing is that we have taken joint forces with Indie Recon, and we're going to be helping to run Indie Recon this year and probably for the indefinite future, and changing it to make it keeping the core, of course, of what made Indie Recon great, which is that it is an online conference, completely free, aimed at the author who is independent of mind and spirit and who wants to kind of reach out directly to their readers. And we're aiming to have 24-hour programming for at least 24 hours, if not 48 hours. This year, and we will also be adding on a live from London day as part of London Book and Screen Week, London Book Fair's Book and Screen Week, and we'll be running that out of Foyles in Charing Cross Road, which is the largest indie bookstore in London, which must make it one of the largest indie bookstores in the world. So Foyles is a fantastic store, and we are delighted to be working with them on that. So it's going to be an action-packed 3 days, which will include our other offerings at London Book Fair, which will include a session on crowdfunding and lots of other things. So that's what we're really aiming at and working hard on at the moment.
Busy. And you've got your Yates book and some Go Creative stuff personally.
Yeah, my own work is also kind of, I always find this, you kind of work quietly away in the background for ages, and it seems like nothing is happening, and then everything suddenly goes public for a while, and then you kind of retreat back. So this first 3 months of this year is kind of very public for me. Big Yeats event, big year for W.B. Yeats, and for those of you who don't know, he's just like the best poet ever, and I'm completely a fan, and he's huge. I couldn't even call him an inspiration because he's so up there, and I'm just here, but he definitely, I've always been a huge fan of his work, and so much so, and his life in a funny way, even though he's not a role model by any means. Just very, very interesting in how he approached his life as a writer, and how focused he was from a very young age of what his purpose was and what his meaning was and what he was trying to make happen in the world. He had a very bizarre way of going about it, and he had a very unusual love life, and I've written a trilogy about that love life, which has taken me a very long time to write. And the first part of it will be launching this year. It's been put off because this year is the 150th anniversary of his birth, and the Yeats Summer School this year I will be there celebrating in force, and the trilogy will be coming. But before that, on April 1st, there is a London event, and the Irish community in London will be gathering at the London Irish Centre, and for a big event of words and music, and I'll be comparing that night, and also on that night releasing my own selected poetry for the last 2 years. So that's what I'm kind of working on bringing together at the moment. And yes, doing audiobooks on the Go Creative stuff. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about audiobooks maybe next time.
Yeah, definitely. We're both recording own audiobooks at the moment, which is hard work. But it's important, we always think, to tell you guys what we're up to, because we have no credibility at all unless we are actually producing. So in terms of me, I've had Gates of Hell go live, and just on that, my first time using the pre-order on Amazon. I've used it before on Kobo and iTunes, but used it on Amazon. Was really happy with the results of using pre-order. Got me in a lot of also boughts, which was amazing. So really happy with that. Encourage people to try using pre-order. We didn't have it until the Hachette dispute, and since we have it, we should try and use it if you can. And I'm also working on optimizing my email list, and I've blogged about this recently on the Creative Pen, working with Nick Stevenson, who's helping me optimize my email list. And it's a really good thing for me, because I've been studying marketing for years, and of course I wrote a book about marketing, and it's so good to be challenged myself and to have someone say, look, you can do better, here's what you need to do. So that's for my fiction email list, and I'll be making some changes to my non-fiction email list. So if anyone wants to know about email marketing, check out Nick Stevenson or the post on my blog about that. So really awesome. Okay, let's get into the questions. We have so many questions today. First question from Patricia Sands. Have you any suggestions on how to gain a higher profile on iTunes? As things are ticking along well enough on Amazon. There's an enormous market on iTunes just waiting for us. How to reach the market is the challenge. Orna.
I think she means iBooks.
Yes, iBooks.
Yeah.
Get the branding right.
Yeah, and in terms of, I mean, Apple is an unusual beast with books, and I'd be very interested in hearing. I know that you were actually in the Apple Store, and that you have had some kind of direct dealings with Apple, and Apple is somebody that we are going to kind of focus in, where this year is all about helping our members to look outside the Amazon ecosystem, not by any means to step outside it, but just to you know, we have a lot of members who are still only publishing on Amazon, and while that is a strategy that works for some people, it is not a strategy that works for everybody. And just to say again what I've probably said many times before, some of you have heard me say many times before, what is new to some people, which is that it is a good idea for most writers, and indeed you can't generalize, but for most people to go directly to Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and Nook for ebooks, and to supplement your CreateSpace POD with Ingram, and indeed perhaps with a short order print, and if we've time might get to talking about that a little bit later on. But yeah, so the people have varying sort of results on Apple, and a lot of people I know are very disappointed with it. One of the most useful things that we offer, I think, on that is Mark Coker has a presentation about how to merchandise your book for Apple, and he's talking about it obviously from the point of view of Smashwords authors, but not exclusively. So you will find that here on this same channel, and the Indie Author YouTube channel, and it's specifically about how to get Apple to kind of notice your book and how to move it along. And one of the other things that's very useful in terms of iBooks noticing your book is to make sure that if you have any news or you're doing any launch or anything, that you include it in our members showcase, because various people are looking at that showcase to see what's going on in the indie world. So yeah, yourself, you've done lots of work around this.
Well, I wouldn't say I've done lots of work, but I've certainly looked at it. But for me, first book for free is really important, because they have a first book in series free promotion thing that they do, and I got Pentecost was in that, and some other people I know were in that. So if you do have a decently long series, like 2 books isn't really a series, and neither is 3 books really, but if you have a few books in a series and you have the first one for free, they really like that. The other thing they told me was to include more direct links to Apple stuff if you're actually putting things out on social media and stuff, because people will buy on their cell phones, that type of thing. And now iBooks is on all Apple devices after the OS 8 update, then that's quite good. The other thing I would say, and this relates to Kobo and Nook, is go to events, author events, and meet the retailers. You will be amazed at what some personal relationships can actually do for your chances. Although, if you're going to do that, make sure that you have a number of books and that they're all professionally done. So if you only have one book, you know, the merchandisers are not going to be that interested. You have to have a decent backlist. You have to, you know, because Apple, Nook, Kobo, the other sites other than Amazon work on a merchandising model, which is, you know, they get money for promoting publishers' books. So with indie books, they have to make a decent return. The other thing I found on all the other sites other than Amazon is higher priced box sets do well on other platforms. So for example, I've actually just published a box set on Kobo, and we'll be putting it on iBooks later today or tomorrow, that I am not even putting on Amazon because it's going to be priced above $9.99. So that's going to be all my books for authors, basically, all 3 books. So I can't put that on Amazon because I'd be losing money, but I can put it on Kobo and iBooks, and they sometimes, when they do a sale, they'll discount that and it will look a good deal, blah, blah, blah. So those are some of my tips. I would also say that ALLi author Karen Inglis has done a post on marketing at iBooks as well. So if you Google Karen Inglis and iBooks, her blog post will come up. I just checked, and that has a whole load of tips as well. So yes, we all want more of Apple in 2015.
And the other thing I would say is, on your website you should have a page for each book, and on that page you should have the links to all the different stores, not just Amazon. And so, you know, if you want to be there, you've got to make it easy for people to find the book.
Oh, you're cutting out there, Orna. So.
Just saying how important it is to include links to all the different stores on your website, or wherever your books page is.
Great. Okay. Isabel asks, do you feel there is a need for a new kind of author service that could help self-published authors if they are struggling with time management of all the necessary skills to be a successful indie author and wish to return to writing full-time? And then the second question, which I feel answers the first half, is, do you feel there is still a benefit to gaining a traditional publishing contract? Which to me answers the question. Partly.
Possibly we have an author here who would like to have a traditional publishing contract, because she feels that if she had, she wouldn't, you know, she would be free to just write. And that is unfortunately a myth among many writers, and it's not really true. It really is the responsibility of every writer today to be independent, in the sense that of understanding your reader and knowing how to reach out to your reader and how to build readership and so on. And traditional publishers are just more and more interested in people who have a proven record in doing that. Time management, however, is a massive, I mean, Isabel raises a huge question here, which is not answerable really in this format. Is there a need for a new publishing service that would help people with time management? I think time management is a personal thing that each writer must work out for themselves, and certainly if you need help in deciding how to do that, it may be worth investing in a mentor. I mean, Jo was talking earlier about working with Nick in terms of, you know, her email list. She is a pretty well and acknowledged expert in ebook marketing, but she's still willing to go and pay and invest in somebody else's ideas and feedback on her site. And I think this is what we need to do if we're not managing our time well. And I have to say, when I look around at the community, I definitely see some people who are actually, I would go so far as to say, suffering and in pain because they are so overwhelmed. Do invest in yourself at that level, because a little bit of time management goes a long way with this stuff. And the first thing to do, though, is to in a sense, drop the idea that these are optional tasks. They are very much an extension of the writing task, and your reaching readers can be managed in a way that amplifies and reinforces your message, you know, the very reason why you decided to be a writer in the first place. So it's worth putting some time into getting this right.
Yeah, and on the other side of the equation, I would say look at eliminating some of the things you do. For example, I eliminated guest posting from my life, either accepting them or doing them, because there just wasn't a return. That was for me personally. I'm not saying you should do that, but elimination is the first thing. You could look at a site like BiblioCrunch or Readsy.com, where there are people who can help you with various tasks. I also have a virtual assistant for some of my tasks. So you can outsource some tasks that we have to do, whether you're traditional or indie, but certainly elimination is really important first, and that real focus on what you're actually doing. Okay, next question. Tina asks, roughly what percentage of the ALLi members write non-fiction? Is there a separate area for non-fiction writers? My brief experience is that most indie authors write fiction, and I have less in common with them than I would like. Both my published books are biographies, and it would be nice to talk to other biographers, particularly about marketing.
Yeah, in terms of the divide, it's about 60-40 fiction, non-fiction. So there are quite a few non-fiction writers, but of course non-fiction spans a huge variety of genre in and of itself. So you as a biographer are not going to possibly have any more in common with, say, a business writer than you would have with a fiction writer. Easiest way to find out who else in ALLi is working in your genre is to go to the search function on the homepage and just key in the genre, and you'll get the other writers who have listed that as you know, their area. And so please, everybody, do fill out your profile, because it's really useful not only for yourself in terms of letting the world know what you do, because this website is used by journalists and others to find indie authors in particular genre, but also really useful in terms of each of you guys reaching out to each other across the world and stuff. So you can search the website the membership now by genre and by global location. And that's part of our sort of going global plans for this year, where we get cross-fertilization across the globe. So in short, that's the easiest and quickest way to go about it. And you're absolutely right. One of the most useful things you can do as an indie is connect with other people who are working in your genre, get together, talk about marketing, and also, you know, get together and have an event, or get together and make a box set, or get together and try and harness each other's readership and introduce each other. You know, a lot of our members are doing that really successfully.
And I would also say that a lot of us write non-fiction and fiction. Both Orna and I write non-fiction as well as fiction, and there's a lot of people in the Facebook group certainly who we talk, you know, there are things every day from people who write across multiple genres. So even if and a lot of the things we talk about are relevant to both. So I would definitely, Tina, you know, come and ask questions and join in, because I think we all have things to teach each other. Absolutely. Okay, so we have a question from a couple of non-fiction authors to stay on the theme. So Ed writes, I wrote a book last year about my son who took his own life 16 years ago. It was intended not to be about the experience. It was intended to be not only the experience itself, but also a significant self-help book with a message of survival and hope. I posted it on Amazon and it got 76 reviews, but basically combined with how much it took to write it, difficulty with Amazon, he pulled the book after 3 weeks, thinking that the subject was too controversial for most folks. I thought it would be a small niche, but I thought the book would appeal to others who would experience the loss of a child. I'm considering a re-release, but I don't know how to go about finding a willing editor besides Fiverr, as well how to make sure how the book reaches my audience. So Ed, that's, you know, obviously a terrible experience to go through, and thank you for writing that book, because I believe it will help a lot of people not experiencing myself, but knowing people who this has happened to, I think this is a market that is probably crying out for books on topics like this, hard books that a lot of people are not willing to write. So thank you for writing it, and please, I would love to see that back up and out there. In terms of a willing editor, I think, you know, there are lots of editors who are ALLi partners. I have a list on my site under thecreativepenn.com/editors, and I think that if you have a look at some of the charities, that might be, in terms of marketing, it's difficult with a book like this because you don't want to use the word marketing and make it sound, you know, when it's a difficult subject, but obviously you want your book to reach people. So I would be looking at the suicide charities, the young people suicide charities, and seeing if there's a way to put things out on their network. That's certainly what I would be looking at. What do you think, Orna?
Yes, I think as to second Joe's call for you to republish, this is one of the most important sort of motives for which people write books, which is both to process their own experience and grief, and then to reach out to help others, and so a very valuable book. And with 76 reviews, it's a shame in a way that it has been unpublished, because those reviews will have to be kind of found again. But it's like any book in one way, and that is any non-fiction book. It's about finding where the readers are, and it's much easier in a way to find readers for a book like this. By using Google wisely and finding the people who are already having these conversations and joining in, not to say, oh, here's my book, but to actually engage with the community and become a useful contributor, so that you're writing not just your book, but you're writing useful posts and useful replies and suggestions and so on for people, and extending the work of the book in that way. And then people will automatically find their way to your book, once the information that you're giving is of value and of use to them. So I know there are lots of support groups in this area, and they all have an online presence, and you would be very welcome there as as a contributor and as somebody who could give and take and learn. And indeed, there may be more books in you to be written about this topic. So yeah, get it back up out there and return. Perhaps when you wrote it the first time, it was a little too soon, or perhaps, with a bit of time now, the whole reaching out to other people around this topic will be easier. I usually find if things don't go right the first time, there's a reason for that, and very often they go right the second time, or indeed the third time. So very best of luck with that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Okay, I love this question. So we have this question from Finn Hall. I keep hearing it said that there's never been a better time to self-publish than now. And this is true when it comes to the process of self-publishing, thanks to the many tools. However, this has led to a vast amount of independent works flooding the market, a tide that seems to be increasing exponentially, which surely leaves us struggling authors in a worse position than even before. My question is, how is it possible to market our books when we are little more than a drop in the rapidly expanding ocean of self-publishing? Ah, it's a great question. Hear that pretty much every day, right, Orna?
Yes. Okay, well, just briefly, forget about everybody else is the first thing. It's not important. The idea that there is a big cake, and that the more people, or ocean, or whatever metaphor you want to use, and that the more people who come in here, the fewer readers there are for you, is a kind of a misunderstanding. That was true when books went through a funnel and a gatekeeping process, and there were only a certain number, and it was only true to a degree then also. It's about you, it's about your book, and it's about the people who are interested in reading your book. So you really don't have to think about anything beyond that. And there are all sorts of reasons for that, which have to do with algorithms and sophisticated search engines and so on. And you don't even have to think about that, because everybody else, the suppliers and the distributors, have looked after all of that very well for you. So the rules for, or the advice for marketing a book is the same, regardless, you know, if it's 1,000 people out there potentially writing, or a million people. It really doesn't change. So yeah, do you want to take over, Ms. Marketing, and give a swift run through what the advice is in terms of marketing a
well,
book?
there's, you know, I think I want to reframe this in another way. I think that the pool of consumers gets bigger. If you think, I don't know about you, but I buy between 3 and 5 and more books a week on Kindle, many of which are people that I meet on the indie networks, either because I'm genuinely interested or to support them. And I read much more digitally than I ever did. I cannot write 3 to 6 books a week. No, nobody can, as far as I can tell. There might be some people who write 1 a month, but nobody's writing 3 to 6 a week. And essentially, I think as people become indie authors, they also get more into reading. And so I think as the pool of writers expands, the pool of readers expands. I think becoming interested in this area. So that's one thing to consider. The more writers there are, the more readers there are. Fantastic. We're our own self-sustaining little community. The second thing is there are a finite number of people in the world, although they keep being born, but the number online and digital right now, and the number of book buyers right now online is tiny compared to where it's going to be every year on year on year on year. I mean, I've now sold books in 64 countries through Kobo. You know, I don't know about iTunes and Amazon, but they're all over the world too. The growth in international readership, and this is in English, is growing every year. We're going to, you know, at the moment the dominant markets are America, Canada, UK, a bit, you know, Australia, New Zealand, but, you know, it's growing and growing and growing. So just think about the number of readers expanding as well. And then in terms of the marketing, as Orna said, just do your thing, you know, whatever your book is about, talk about that, whether that's on social media, whether that's on blogging or podcasting or whatever. I do think you have to do something to get away from, you know, just you, whether that's networking, whether that's, you know, if you're a fiction writer going to an authors group or a conference, you know, don't just sit at home all the time on your own. But I don't think there are any rules, and I think the pie is only getting bigger. So it is the most exciting time.
It absolutely certainly is. And, you know, what it takes to be a writer, what it takes to be an author, what it takes to build a readership doesn't change just because there are lots of people coming into the space. There are also lots of people leaving the space because they, you know, they don't write a good book and it falls to the bottom of Amazon, and, you know, they wrote it because they thought they were going to strike Kindle Gold and reality hits. Because they don't write enough books, one book won't do it. It never did. Well, it did for Harper Lee, but, you know, we're talking lottery here. For the average writer, for you and me, you know, and if you turn into one of the outliers, fine, that will be a stroke of luck, a stroke of magic or whatever. But for the average writer, what it takes is write the best book you can write, and then put it out there and get better at what you do, both in terms of your writing and in terms of putting it out there in the way that speaks genuinely to your readership. It's a long game, expect it to be so and want it to be so. Take pleasure in the work itself, and spend much less time thinking about all the problems and challenges, and put your energy into availing of the opportunities that absolutely are there now. There never has been a better time to be a writer, and that is definite.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Sylvie asks, I have written 4 books that I would like to get published. I became a member of ALLi a few months ago and would appreciate help on the process. How do I get started? My books are written on an iPad, which has proved difficult to get a website going. So I don't think that the iPad bit is the point, Sylvie. Really, it doesn't really matter where it's written on, but you are definitely going to need something other than an iPad if you're going to kind of publish through some of the methods we talk about. But I would say that probably the best thing is to go to that ALLi members area and get the book Choosing a Self-Publishing Service, which contains all the recommendations for the services to use.
There's also the basic self-publishing primer, which is there for beginners, which is just kind of like the bare 40 steps you need to do it.
The bare 40 steps.
Yes. Yeah, but that's what it is. Seemingly, we tried to get it down to as little as you possibly need to know, and essentially that's from the point of kind of finishing your manuscript to putting it out there. There are 40 smallish steps. Some are bigger than others, and if you work your way methodically through that, yeah, you'll get there.
Yeah, and I would add after that the more books you do, the easier it becomes, and the first book is going to be the hardest to self-publish because you've never done it before. It's like anything, you know, like driving a car or whatever. The first time you do have to upskill yourself and be ready to invest time if you want to do this. If you do want to do this, then it does get easier, and the more books you do, like I just said, I'm just going to publish another box set after this conversation because it doesn't take me very long anymore. So anyway, just to make you feel better.
I think that's a really good point, though, and we do see it all the time. There's that sort of fatigue that sets in during those 40 steps, somewhere along the line, or certainly when they're finished. And, you know, to be prepared for that, there is a sort of a learning curve. It's learning by doing, and it is a little overwhelming at times, a little tiring at times, but having done it once, the second time is easier, and then after that it really becomes, the production end of it is what kind of is very much in your mind for that first book, you know, learning how to put it out there. A couple of shortcuts are Scrivener, which really helps in terms of compiling ebooks. So there is no Scrivener for iPad, so I would recommend that if you're serious about self-publishing, that you move from iPad onto an actual laptop or desktop computer. And there are a few other shortcuts which are outlined in that primer, and that really do help to kind of get you along the production side of things, which can seem so overwhelming at first, and then which after a book or two you stop talking or thinking about completely, and you move over to thinking about a whole set of other challenges, which is about reaching your readers. So yeah, get stuck in, and also do come onto the forum. Tell people what your specific problem is in this moment, and you'll find loads and loads of people have been there before, and they'll be able to help you and tell you what worked for them. So yeah, just take advantage of your membership.
Yeah, and also I'd probably say if you've written 4 books, I would probably, your next step is to get an editor rather than to publish directly. So just consider that step in the process. I presume that's in the 40 steps, Orna.
It's really important. A whole section all to itself.
Excellent. Okay, next question from Linda. I would like to have your perspective on the sweet spot for pricing full-length novels. I've priced my October mystery release at $4.99 US, intending to raise it to $5.99 in January. Now I'm having second thoughts. Is $5.99 too high, and will I lose sales? I noticed that your books are below $5. My books probably, but no, others. Yeah, or yours too. So I do $4.99 for full length. But others in ALLi are priced quite a bit higher, although no one is over $10. That will be because of the $9.99 cutoff for the 70% royalty, Linda. So what is your, Linda's from Canada, so what is the rule? I would say that there is no sweet spot. For a start, I choose $4.99 US for my full length and $2.99 US for a novella. Because I think that I'm not famous, and therefore I think those are decent prices that make me $4 per book, and I feel happy at that price. I do have higher price products for my non-fiction. So my How to Market a Book is $6.99, and I have box sets that are higher priced. So I have a box set at $7.99, and as I mentioned, I'm putting another box set up for like $15. So I definitely can go higher. But in terms of full-length novels, you have to remember that fiction readers can eat books really fast, and therefore, no, it doesn't say mystery. Oh yeah, mystery release. So I would say, yeah, mystery readers read pretty fast. So if your book is expensive, then that might be outside what they're willing to pay, because they buy 3 or 5 books a week. So that would be my thought. I think $4.99 is fine for a full length, and $2.99 for a novella. Orna?
Yes, Mashworth did some interesting research on this last year and found that if there is a sweet spot, and really it totally depends on the author, on the book, on your profile, on your platform, who you're reaching, there are so many variables to take into account. And indeed, you may price different books at different prices. As a marketing strategy, lots of people have a cheap first or free first in series and so on. But if there is a sweet spot across the board, generally speaking, apparently it is $3.99 US. That is the price at which most books do best. But yeah, very little to add really to what Joe said, except that the best thing to do is try it. The wonderful thing about being indie is that you have flexibility around pricing and you can have a go. We have had members who have, upped their sales by upping their prices, and we have members who have upped their sales by lowering their prices. And it very much the one thing I would say is that your pricing structure and your profile and platform should match. So if you are somebody who sees yourself at this sort of mid-range or upper range of the spectrum in terms of genre to literary, then pricing at 99 cents is going to make people think you're a genre writer who produces an awful lot of books. And if you're not that kind of writer, then you're going to disappoint your readers. And similarly, the other way around, if you are that kind of reader and you put yourself out there at $4.99, you're less likely to sell well, because readers at that level read so much that they don't want to pay a lot for a book. So it very much depends, and make your pricing match your profile, but most of all, try, experiment and see what works for you. So just make a change in pricing, don't make any other changes at the same time, and see what sort of effect that has on your sales.
Yeah, I would also say that the more books you have, the more you can play with this stuff. If you've got one book, just write some more books and don't worry too much about price until you've got a couple of books to play with. And the other thing is that on the KDP dashboard, they have a beta price comparison tool that you can now go in, and it will tell you what your price should be compared to other books. You have to have quite a bit of data for that, so it won't be available for everyone, but it will be there, but it'll say not enough data. So go and have a look at that on the KDP pricing side of things. Second pricing question. Julie asks, what do you think of pricing ebooks the same as traditional publishing, e.g. short ebooks of 10,000 words at $2.99? Julie, I'll jump straight in on this one. I think that traditional publishing is now pricing to match indies. If you look in the stores, like I was having a look earlier, like Gone Girl was at £1.50 in the US. That's cheaper than my books. And that's Gone Girl. I mean, obviously that's Gone Girl, so they sell in bulk. But you'll see that in the last 6 months, probably traditional publishers have come down and matched a lot of the indie pricing, which is not great for their authors and not great for us either, because we don't look like such a great deal. But clearly, it works better, which is why they're doing it. So I think what do you think of pricing ebooks the same, and you probably mean higher, is have a look at your genre and then make a decision. Orna?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What Joe said.
what I said. Okay, Jim asks, is there any list or directory of businesses or agencies that specialize in marketing, distribution, or sales of independently authored books, either in the UK or North America?
I'm not really sure what that question refers to. I'm assuming...
It sounds like you really mean a publisher, Jim. If it's distribution and sales of books and an organization who does that, I mean, really, the distribution and sales that most indies count on are companies like Amazon, Kobo, iBooks, Nook, CreateSpace, Ingram Spark. They distribute and sell our ebooks, print books, audiobooks, and they specialize in that. They also have marketing tools per platform. So in terms of a list, that would be in the Choosing a Self-Publishing service, which will, the ebook you get free with your membership or that other people can buy online. That contains a whole list of the service providers that ALLi recommends.
Yeah, and compares them in terms of what they offer and the pricing that they will charge you for what they offer, and they are rated and vetted as well. So unless you're talking about print books specifically and you're talking about your own, you know, getting your own books printed, your own short order of books that you might have at home somewhere because you've done that. So Jim, what would be useful to us in terms of answering your question is if you could refine it a little, and maybe we'd get to it next time so we can understand exactly what it is you're referring to. But yeah, I think that's the best way to handle that.
Yeah. Okay, we've got 15 minutes left. Do we have any live questions? I've still got more other questions. I just want to check if anyone's...
I didn't even turn it on because we had just because we had so many.
Yeah,
I think
we should just check if anyone's
okie dokie. If anybody would like to submit a question, please do.
Because I don't, if anyone's live, I don't want to be annoying.
Sure. Okay, carry on in the meantime.
Okay, all right. So Stephen asks, I'll soon be starting the marketing effort for my first novel. It describes the time my brother lost his sight and attended a school for blind adults. At the school, he learned about blind sports and met people who were diverse, happy, sad, and sometimes very funny. The people are more prominent in the book than the sport. I found some email addresses for teams that compete in blind baseball and downhill skiing, which do sound difficult. And I want to contact the teams to sincerely promote their sports and give them something on the website. Overall, my strategy is to contact them and hopefully start a beneficial relationship. My current challenge is writing the email. As in, how do you gain the trust or interest of groups like this for a non-fiction book, so sporting books, for example, or this could relate to the suicide book from earlier. You know, how do you approach organizations from a perspective of really wanting to help, but equally wanting to get your book out there?
Yeah, I think it's the same rules that apply, you know, in inverted comma rules. I think the way to approach this is to very much put yourself in the other person's shoes. So stop thinking about I'm somebody who has a book to sell and start thinking about ways in which you can be useful to the community. And in terms of framing your email, I think that's it's a useful way to approach that task, is to think about, you know, if you were in their shoes, what would you want somebody to come along and offer? And I think only if you can be genuine, and I'm not really specifically addressing you here, Steve, but, you know, everybody, only do this insofar as you can be genuine, because I think it's very easy for people to understand or see if somebody is coming in with an ulterior motive. Now, and it's obvious from the sort of pains you're taking here and how you're thinking about it and going about it, that's not true for you. But to some degree, we're all, as authors with books to sell, you know, we've got that motive, if you like, in place. So we need to think very carefully, I think, when we are relating with our chosen community, about where that starts and where that finishes, and where our interest starts and where it finishes. And the more genuine we can be in our engagement, and the more to and fro there is going on, the more genuine sharing and interest that we have, the better we will manage this. And I think it's about returning to the original mission you have when you're writing the books. The reason you write a book is because you want to reach somebody, not at the level of a sale, because that really isn't enough to sustain you in and of itself, and through the whole process and pain of writing a book. And indeed, that same motive then carry it on into marketing, so that you are promoting and reaching readers from that place, rather than buy my book, which just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I would add to this, you could, if this is, I would suggest you would be writing multiple books about this community rather than just the one, if this is something you're caring about. But if, in the same way with the suicide thing, if this is something you want to do more with ongoing, then starting a blog around the topics of your books. I think James Minter does this with there's a disease that ALLi member James Minter has written about several books, funny books about related to this disease. So if you blog about this stuff, and then if you're on Twitter, like these sports teams probably have a Twitter account, if you're actually retweeting some of their stuff, if you're sharing your content and copying them in on Twitter, they will notice you. And then it's almost, I do this all the time on Twitter, it's almost like get noticed before you ask anything, because then they actually respond to you. So this is the way. It's like the cyber stalking in a good way, as in when you are legitimate and really passionate about this topic. That's actually a good way of doing things. I notice people when they put my Twitter handle on tweets. I will see them. I will follow them back if it's appropriate. I will have a look at what they've written. Also, most organizations will have their name set up in like Google Alerts or mention.net, I think it is, where they get sent notification of when people are talking about them on a blog post, for example. So again, if you actually start writing articles, whether it's your own blog or on Medium or other sites, they are far more likely to be aware of you before you approach them for anything.
And again, hang out in the community to listen. Most people are bad listeners, but actually writers tend to be generally good listeners, because we have to be in order to write our books. We have to. So, before you jump into a community, really listen to what's engaging people, and that will help you write your email, because you'll see what sort of things they are concerned and worried about.
Yeah.
We have a question here from Jeff, which is draft to digital. Have you ever mentioned or discussed draft to digital? They have just added the Tolino reader to their publishing list. Yeah, so we have indeed mentioned draft to digital once or twice, Jeff. Fantastic new distributor. Actually, I think I'm not breaking any sort of secret act if I tell you that we make an annual award to a particular self-publishing service that does a great job, and this year it will be to Draft to Digital, because they've just done so many amazingly fantastic things in the last 6 months to a year. And yes, adding Tolino to their publishing list is one of those things, but they're doing they're a really go-ahead kind of company. They're providing a very useful alternative distributor, and they're doing things that other people are not doing. And Jim Matteo, in our updated Choosing a Self-Publishing Service for 2015, has a lot to say about them and all the great things that they are doing. So yes, yeah, I can't really praise them highly enough. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we have two questions that relate to screenwrites. Jill Marsh asks, a couple of us have been approached by two different companies, one for a novel, another for a series. How about the sale of screenwrites? Would you advise seeking an agent, hiring a publishing lawyer, or using a Society of Authors, Writers Guild, etc.? And then I'll ask the second bit. So Yeah.
Okay, screenwrites. Okay. Generally speaking, an agent will only be interested in a screen deal if it is a major deal, in the same way that an agent will only be interested in a trade deal if it's a major deal. And most of the requests that are made to indie authors, by no means all, but most of them are coming from people who are, you know, small indie producers or film companies who are optioning a lot of books, you know, with a view to then trying to go and get funding and get the project greenlit and so on. This area is notoriously slow and notoriously difficult for writers. So the first thing to say is, you know, keep your expectations low and don't get too excited if somebody comes in and sort of begins the offer. There's no need to go to the Society of Authors of the Writers Guild in the sense that, you know, as a starting point, begin with us, because we've quite a bit of information and expertise in this area. Charmaine Lovegrove from Dialogue is looking after TV, you know, rights, and she can. She's both actively seeking work, but she's also great in terms of giving advice on the contracts that are come forward to indies. Toby Mundy, our agent, as well as looking at foreign rights, is also Ed Victor has a good screenwrites department. And Nat Mundell is there to give lots of advice on how to actually present your material and take it forward as well. So, you know, begin there, because that's included already in your membership, and you can take it forward from there. But most of the contracts, I mean, we haven't had any member who's come along with something that's would be really something to get excited about. So an option on your book essentially just means that they want you not to give it to anybody else for a while, and you know, unless you have people beating down your door, you may well feel that, yeah, I might as well do that. But it's all just to know that it all takes a very long time, and even when a project is accepted and is going into production, you know, it takes a long time for it to be greenlit and then for it to be financed, and then of those, you know, only not all get made. So the biggest and best screenwriters, I heard David Hare talking some time ago, saying that 1 in 3 of the films that he writes, and he is one of the foremost screenwriters in the world, 1 in 3 gets made. So yeah,
yeah, it's a very difficult route. I've looked a lot into this in the last 6 months and kind of decided that I'm not pursuing it actively. You know, if things come along, then great. But there is a follow-up question from Fiona. It's kind of an extension of the film rights. Be good to know the best route if you're approached to adapt your own book, as in for you to do the adaptation, or the producer wants to adapt your book with their own script writer in mind. And I went to the Screenwriters Festival last year, and the general consensus seems to be that they never want an author of a book to do an adaptation. Now, obviously, Gillian Flynn just did Gone Girl, but she, I believe, was a journalist originally, so has quite a different background. But the other alternative, of course, is to adapt yourself and then try and sell the screenplay as a kind of separate product. But I've also heard from script doctors and things that it's very hard to adapt your own novel, because you have to cut it so much and change perspective and things. So
I've just done this actually. I'm just finishing.
Oh, finishing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Finally finishing. You know, she's Little Miss Sarcastic who gets everything done in 3 weeks.
When I met Orna, she was starting this. That's like years ago.
Takes me a long time to get anything finished, but yeah, I am finishing. I do finish eventually, and it has been a really interesting experience. Advice from Nat Mundell, who is probably the most active person selling indies into Hollywood, is that a script and a book together is the most saleable. So for writers, so whether you do that script yourself, and I wouldn't really recommend anyone to do, because it does take an awful long time, and it's a completely different art form. And I've done a number of courses and things, and my son's script writer, and I'm doing it really for the hell of it, not because I think it is going to necessarily go anywhere at all. Also because it helped me to structure what was a very long piece of material in a different way, which gave me the sort of creative distance I needed to finish the trilogy. So that was the other reason that I did it. But this whole area, it's really exciting, and it's potentially, it's very
sexy.
Very sexy, very easy to get stars, and Hollywood stars in our eyes. But and then again, it happens. So I'm certainly not saying not to go there, but I am saying it takes a huge amount of time. It's a different art form. It is a whole different set of rules. And if you have somebody who's offering to adapt it for you, I would certainly go that route in the first instance, unless you have a burning desire to do it yourself.
Yeah. Yes, and the YouTube interview with Nat is on the YouTube channel. Is that right?
That's right, on this same channel. Yeah, you'll find it
on
there.
The channel.
Right here on this channel.
Yeah, so go look at that. Okay, so any last questions, or we are almost out of time?
Yeah, I think we should leave it there. We've done almost an hour, and
hardcore.
Anything we have left over, we will do next month. We will be here again on the last Tuesday at 4 p.m. London time.
Let me do. Yeah, so February 24th, 4 p.m. London. See you then. Thank you, Orna, and thank you for everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, folks. Great questions. Bye now.